אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהכל נהיה בדברו. We are presently in the month of Tammuz in the Jewish calendar. On the third day of Tammuz is a commemoration of the passing away of the last Lubavitcher Rebbe. I thought that following what I knew was Hasidic type of behavior, in the synagogue I suggested, you know what, let us not say Tachanun. Tachanun is a prayer of petition to God, and in the Hasidic circles, they don't say Tachanun on the anniversary of the death of one of their sages. Maybe the reason is they feel, let the sage who is now closer to God petition for us on this day, and we shouldn't interfere with our own petitions. I found afterwards a follower of Chabad, and he told me, no, we did say Tachanun. So I say, you don't follow that? When don't you say Tachanun? Oh, he says, on the day when the Rebbe was liberated from prison. That's a festive day, so we don't make any petitions that shouldn't interfere with our joy because the Rebbe left prison. And it made me think, to this day, look at how the life of the Rebbe of Lubavitch is observed. At the same time, I read something written by a friend of mine, Aaron Ziegler. He's a very erudite rabbi, and he spoke about Joshua, who was the follower of Moses, of Moshe, Yehoshua. He was leading the Jewish people in battle, and the Jews were overcoming their enemies, but they hadn't finished the battle yet. And nightfall was about to come, so he screamed out, Shemesh begivon dom, ve'yareach be'emek alanon. The sun should stop where it is, and the moon should also stop, so the day should continue until they're able to conquer their enemies. And that's what happened. God listened to his petition, and the Jews were victorious over their enemies at that time. And I said to myself, that also happened, according to Rabbi Aaron Ziegler, on the third day of Tammuz. What does the Rebbe of Lubavitch have to do with Joshua? Joshua was the leader of the Jewish people. He was the heir to the leadership of Moses. The entire Jewish people came out of Egypt. They were conquering the land. That was it. He was the leader of the entire Jewish people. The Rebbe of Lubavitch has a community, a large community, but he's not the rabbi of the Jewish people. So how can I compare one with the other? And I kept on thinking about it, and I remembered that the previous Lubavitch rabbi Rebbe, the Friediger Rebbe, as they call him, already had instituted a study period for everybody that included the portion of the Torah of that week, also some chapter of Tanya, which is a Kabbalistic, moralistic work of the first Lubavitch Rebbe, and some chapters of Tehillim. Because many Jews, when he came to the United States, were working on the Sabbath. They couldn't go to the synagogue because you worked 6 days a week. So he felt he should give them some instrument in order to stay close to the Jewish tradition. He also instituted shluchim, emissaries, to different parts of the country in order to attend the needs of Jews that were far away from their tradition. Of course, the last Lubavitch Rebbe multiplied that exponentially, so that today you have thousands of shluchim all over the world. Imagine in Cusco. Cusco is in Peru, near Bolivia, 3,000 meters above sea level. You can barely breathe there. But there are many young Israelis that go there during Easter time, Pesach. So they institute a Seder of Pesach there. In India, in every part of the world, there are shluchim of Lubavitch all over, trying to fill the needs of Jews. I remember seeing in the city of New York what they called a mitzvah tank, a truck, a covered truck, and some young people inviting some Jews, come on in. If you didn't put on tefillin that day, if you didn't put on the phylacteries that are used for prayer, on that day, come, I'll give you an opportunity to do it. Young girls distributing candles before the Sabbath for people to light in their home. So the Sabbath should be a festive moment. There should be light in the home for the Sabbath. And I felt to myself, What is the Lubavitcher Rebbe doing actually? Because he is not only the Rebbe of a community. I was a rabbi for almost 6 decades. I was a rabbi in the city of New York in a community, and I was a rabbi in Caracas. I am now retired. Question, am I still a rabbi or not? Am I a rabbi without a community? Am I still a rabbi or not? Well, I'd like to disappear, so to speak, to mingle with everybody else. I already served my years, but the people that remind me constantly, Rabbi, how are you? In other words, in a sense, I was a rabbi really before I had a position with a community. I am a rabbi because I decided to dedicate my life to teaching, to bring Judaism to the Jewish people. And in a sense, I haven't lost that. Or did I lose it now that I don't have a community? I'm not too sure. But in the case of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, no. He was the Rebbe of the Jewish people. He felt a responsibility for a Jew everywhere, in every confine of the world. I mentioned to you thousands of shluchim all over the world, bringing the word of the Jewish tradition to the Jewish people. That was his responsibility. I said, you know what? Maybe he is comparable then to Joshua. Joshua was the leader of the entire Jewish people. Well, the Rebbe assumed. You know, there is a saying, Kol Yisrael arevim ze laze. We are all responsible for one another. Do you feel responsibility for every other Jew in the world? Do you feel responsibility for every other human being in this world? Well, the Rebbe apparently had an enormous heart. He felt responsibility for the Jewish people. And this is why his ministry is still valid today. I had a teacher by the name of Rabbi Soloveitchik. I have mentioned him a number. Joseph B. Soloveitchik. He had thousands of students. You know, only a couple of days ago, the 4th volume of the Pentateuch, that's the Chumash, the Torah, with his commentary was published. It's the book of Numbers, it's called in English, in Bamidbar in Hebrew. He already passed away a number of years ago, yet his writings are still being read. They're being published right now. Things that weren't even published during his lifetime because he wasn't akin to that. He didn't like to do that. Many things are being published posthumously. Can you say that he really died already? Can you say that his focus was just Boston or New York, wherever he lived? Actually, his vision was much wider. It encompassed the entire Jewish people. So on the 3rd day of Tammuz, when we commemorate the passing of the Rebbe of Lubavitch, we have to remember that we're not talking just about a rabbi, about somebody who was a leader of a community, even though a numerous community, because he felt the responsibility for the entire Jewish people. And if you see shluchim today all over the world, if you see that the example of his life is still being observed, that means that his influence certainly was beyond the days when he was alive in this world.